Well, I think we have a lot of issues, right? And we can talk about a ton of issues that face labor in terms of working conditions and wages and benefits and social justice and economic justice issues. And I think all of those are very, very important. But the only way we really get there is to organize. And that means, what I mean by organize, it means forming unions, joining unions, getting everyone together in solidarity at the workplace, and getting it going and creating what we call union density. So more and more people are joining unions and forming unions. And then if we get that certain level, then we gain power and we can make real change and achieve all of those other things that we're talking about. And I put direct actions because that's one of the things we have to do to get there. And then I also put electoral politics is the other thing we need to do to get there. And sometimes people think, there's a conflict between those two, but we need to do both. And preceding that, it's all about organizing. Well, here's the thing. Right now, we actually do have unprecedented organizing efforts going on. And it happens, I checked the NLRB website in terms of Wisconsin, and each year, I checked how many workers voted yes to a union. And we average about once a month. We have 120 plus workplaces where workers voted yes for unions since that attack on Act 10 when they stripped away public sector workers' rights. And I saw that there was also a time where it escalated again in terms of workers being interested in joining unions. Each time there seemed to be an attack on the working class. So the latest was, if you remember, Fight for 15. These were when workers that were low-wage workers who do very important work wanted a more livable wage. And if they had really gone by inflation, it would have been $20-some an hour. But it was Fight for 15 just to get them above that 10 or 12. And the companies, they couldn't afford it. Well, after COVID hit, then they could afford it because workers started realizing their true value, right? They already knew that, I think, some of them, but they really said, now we can assert this and say, yes, we are just as important. And we do deserve a fair shake when it comes to wages, benefits, and especially working conditions. And when you say working conditions, it means worker safety is a big part of that. And that was compromised during COVID and before. And we also saw heat waves where it's being compromised. So when we see these workers coming together, it's unprecedented now. We've had over 60 groups of workers in the last few years interested in joining unions and forming unions. And we have, I'd say, 10 to 15 that are actively organizing today. And anyone can do it. Workers, if you're facing anything when it comes to your workplace, you can contact the South Central Federation of Labor, and we'll sit down with you and figure things out with how to proceed so that we all do it the right way, and you get the kind of solidarity and support that you see here today for you as well. I don't see where any person that sits on the political spectrum, whether Republican, Democrat, middle, wherever, would be against organizing when it comes to unionization efforts. And that's because when you have strong unions, everybody benefits. You have the highest happiness level in the countries that have the highest union density in the world. It's the Scandinavian countries. You have the states that are doing better off with wages and benefits. Those happen to have the highest union density. When you get good union density, and then when you talk about social justice and economic justice, here in this community, we care about immigrant rights and racial justice and reproductive freedom, all of these things that are LGBTQ rights, all of these things that we have a fundamental belief in when it comes to our virtues of freedom, of privacy, of justice, of equality. That happens, that comes to fruition when people start joining unions. It just happens naturally. And there's reasons for that we could get, that would take a lot longer, and I think academics can discuss that as well. But if you want to do a sit down in my office, we're more than willing to have that conversation. But also the people who consider themselves, fiscal conservatives. Act 10 actually, I was a public sector worker once. Act 10 actually caused us not to be able to save taxpayer dollars as a worker and save lives. And public safety, when it comes to public safety and saving taxpayer dollars, unions were doing that in the public sector, and they stripped that away from those workers to be able to sit on those committees, the safety committees, the insurance advisory committees, the committees that mattered in terms of how do I find the efficiencies, how do I do my job better. All that was taken away from those workers who know it best. If you're a worker, you know how you should be able to contribute in terms of decision making and making things run better, and that was stripped away. So I think you increase union density in the public sector and the private sector, it's going to cause something better for everyone. And I'll give you one more example. The building and construction trades and other trades, the stagehands also, and some of the manufacturing trades, they have apprenticeship programs. They have workforce development going on with these jobs that are coming into our state. They prepare those kids and those kids at a younger age to say, hey, if you want to do this, and you want to be self-sufficient and you haven't had that opportunity, we're going to give you that education. We're going to give you that skill set. And then we're going to get you those really good jobs. That's something that unions invest in, that workforce development, that they invest in for those apprenticeship programs. So there are so many reasons to support unionizing efforts. And we know that whether you're a corporation or whether you're a small business and you're union, you're still making profits, plenty of them. And I could name them off. We know there's some big names that are making big profits. And even the small businesses. I'll just say, there's plenty of small businesses that are union and little co-ops that are doing well. Because when the workers do well, the people that are invested in their companies are doing well too. And when you attack them, then why are you doing it? And I think it has more to do with power. And I think if you just are consumed with power, then you're taken away. You're not as supportive of those unionization rights.
Happy Labor Day. It is great to be here and to be in front of a union audience again. I've worked at the Transport Workers Union, the American Federation of Government Employees, the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists, and the AFL-CIO, and it is a real privilege now to be able to work at the most pro-union White House in our lifetime. This is a White House that has fought to increase PLAs across the federal sector so that any federal project now is going to have a PLA. It is a White House that has raised wages in a variety of ways by rewriting Davis-Bacon wages for the first time in 40 years, and that will make a difference in 1 million construction workers' lives. It is a White House that has raised overtime eligibility so that on January 1st of 2025, 4 million workers will be eligible for overtime for the first time. It is a White House that is named pro-labor members of the National Labor Relations Board, so that means that when we turn in cards to organize a union, those elections have to happen much faster than they ever had before. That if there's a union-busting company that has taken wages away from a worker, that now that company has to come back and potentially pay lost rent, credit cards, and medical fees. That is the difference of a pro-union administration that names pro-worker appointees to the National Labor Relations Board. And finally, and most importantly, this is an administration that when they talk about workers, they walk the walk, and that's why President Biden is the first sitting president to ever walk a picket line. And so, my brothers and sisters, I am here happily and joyfully as a union member, as somebody who has organized workers, to say that I work at the most pro-union administration in our lifetime, and I'm here to say Happy Labor Day to all of you.
Hello, Madison! I'm Michael O'Hara. I'm honored to be here with Noble Knight Games United, represented by CWA 4652. We are Madison's only union board game store, and we would love to have you at our shop in Fitchburg. I want to give a thank you. Last year we were here. We just got our first contract. This year, we're a year in. We're already making notes for the next one, and we're going to give them hell. All right. Thank you all so much for coming out. I want to thank the Madison labor community for being so welcoming, CWA for taking us in amongst their own. And this is an election year. You got a lot of people here asking for your time. They're fighting a good fight, but we know the long game. Labor's struggle cannot be resolved through electoralism. Class struggle is eternal. We are here. We are fighting. The only way forward is to organize. 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 Thank you.